Welcome to the deep dive. So, today we are taking a close look at the realities of navigating modern home network emergencies.
Yeah, the stuff that really breaks when you least expect it.
Exactly. And we're pulling our insights from this fascinating real-world case study compiled by Cowabunga Computers. They're a professional IT firm based in Honolulu,
Right. Their report is titled Battery Backup Blowout: How We Restored a Penthouse Network in Under 3 Hours.
which is quite the title.
All right.
But our mission today is to unpack this specific Oahu penthouse emergency, to discover the crucial lessons hidden in this timeline.
Because it's a highly detailed look at what happens when enterprise-grade technology meets regular residential living.
Definitely. We want to see what actually protects our own home networks, what invisible threats are, like lurking in the hardware, and how to stay in control of your digital property.
It's so easy to lose control without even realizing it.
Right. So to get us started, imagine for a second that you hire this elite top-tier bodyguard to protect your house. I mean, the absolute best in the business.
Okay, I am picturing it.
But one morning, he accidentally locks you out, swallows the only key, and stands in front of your own door, physically refusing to let you back inside.
So the very thing you installed to guarantee your safety has become the primary obstacle to your access.
Exactly. It's a complete inversion of its purpose. And that is exactly the scenario this homeowner woke up to.
A total digital blackout.
Yeah. They're living in this beautiful penthouse, but they wake up to zero internet, zero Wi-Fi, just a completely dead network. And the culprit wasn't a lightning strike or some hacker.
No, it was the uninterruptible power supply.
The UPS. For anyone unfamiliar, a UPS is essentially this large, heavy battery backup, right?
Yeah, its primary job is to just sit between your expensive electronics and the wall outlet. It acts as a failsafe.
Right.
If the power flickers or dies, the UPS instantly switches to battery power, which keeps your network alive and prevents data corruption.
But we aren't talking about a small plastic router sitting on a bookshelf here. To understand the scale of what went down, we really have to look at the client's hardware.
Oh yeah, the case study notes this penthouse was running a full Unify system.
Now, I know Unify is super popular, but what makes this different from the Wi-Fi router you might just grab at a big box store?
Well, the biggest difference is that a standard store-bought router is an all-in-one device. It's the modem, the router, the switch, and the antenna all crammed into one little plastic box.
Like a jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly. Unify, on the other hand, is true enterprise-grade hardware. It separates all those functions into dedicated, high-performance pieces.
Got it.
So in this specific Honolulu penthouse, they had a security gateway acting as the core brain and firewall, and that gateway connected to this massive 16-port network switch.
And that switch is basically the central nervous system, right?
Yeah.
Distributing data and sometimes even electrical power to the rest of the house through Ethernet cables in the walls.
Precisely. And at the end of those cables were 5 separate wireless access points strategically mounted across the penthouse.
5. That seems like a lot for one unit.
Well, instead of one antenna trying to blast a signal through multiple concrete walls, you have this synchronized web of antennas that just blankets the unit in seamless Wi-Fi.
It sounds like a total dream setup.
Yeah.
Until the morning, it completely dies.
Yeah, that is the nightmare.
According to Cowabunga Computers' incident report, the rack-mounted UPS failed. But it didn't just beep and quietly power off. It physically tripped the home circuit breaker.
Which is a huge problem.
Yeah. And because this faulty unit was still plugged into the wall, the breaker just refused to reset. The entire penthouse was held hostage in the dark.
Cowabunga got the panic call and was actually on site by 9 a.m.
Which is an incredibly fast response time. But I am struggling with the mechanics here. How does a safety net end up choking the system it's meant to catch?
It really comes down to the physical reality of how a UPS works.
Okay.
It is constantly monitoring incoming voltage, filtering out microsurges, and maintaining a charge in heavy chemical batteries. Over time, usually like 3 to 5 years, the chemistry inside those batteries degrades.
They just get old and wear out.
Yeah. And furthermore, the internal components handling the electrical load, like the capacitors, they undergo massive stress. When a capacitor blows or the internal circuitry physically degrades, the UPS stops being a protective filter.
So the electricity suddenly has nowhere to go.
Actually, it has a direct unintended path. It becomes what we call a dead short.
A dead short. What does that mean?
The electrical current suddenly has a path directly to the grounding wire with almost zero resistance. And when resistance drops, the amperage spikes dramatically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, your home's circuit breaker is designed to monitor for that exact kind of catastrophic spike because it generates massive heat and causes electrical fires.
Okay, so the breaker snapping off is actually the house protecting itself from catching fire.
Yes, exactly. The breaker is functioning perfectly. But here is the trap.
Okay, what is it?
As long as that fried, short-circuited UPS remains plugged into the outlet, the dead short still exists.
Oh, I see.
The moment you try to flip the breaker back on, it instantly detects the short and snaps back off again. The UPS actively engaged the home's ultimate safety mechanism against the homeowner.
So you are completely paralyzed until someone physically isolates the problem.
Right.
So the Cowabunga tech figures this out, unplugs the dead battery back up, resets the breaker, and the power comes back on. Problem solved, right?
You would hope so.
Yeah, you just order a new battery and take the rest of the morning off. But that is where this case study takes a massive left turn. When the power came back, the team discovered a second trap hidden in the system.
The phantom admin.
I found this part so wild. So the client had recently purchased this penthouse, and the previous owners left all of this highly expensive enterprise-grade Unify gear behind.
Which feels like a massive win for the buyer, honestly.
Right. Free
Yep.
premium tech.
Right.
But they didn't leave the login credentials for the network controller.
Which turns a standard hardware replacement into a highly sensitive cybersecurity problem.
Wait, I've heard of digital inheritance when we talk about things like passing down social media accounts or photo libraries. Are you saying the concept of digital inheritance applies to physical real estate now?
Absolutely. I mean, think about what a modern home is. It's no longer just drywall and plumbing. It's physical infrastructure, totally intertwined with digital access keys.
That makes total sense.
Up until this power failure, the new homeowner had just been using the Wi-Fi blindly. They had the Wi-Fi password to connect their phone, so they just assumed everything was fine.
But they didn't have the real keys.
Right. They had zero administrative control over the actual hardware governing their home.
Which means they were effectively a guest on their own property.
Yes. Without those administrative credentials, you cannot change your core Wi-Fi password if you suspect someone else has it. You cannot set up a secure guest network.
You're totally locked out of the back end.
And more importantly, you cannot see the client list. You have no idea what devices are silently connected to your own home network.
That is genuinely unsettling. The previous owner could have, like, a smart thermostat, a hidden camera, or a VPN tunnel running on a device tucked in a closet, and you would have absolutely no visibility.
Exactly. Or consider the software side. Enterprise hardware like Unify requires regular firmware updates to patch security vulnerabilities.
Right, because new threats pop up all the time.
If you don't have the admin login, you cannot patch those zero-day exploits. Your home basically becomes a sitting duck for automated botnets and malicious scripts just scanning the internet for outdated routers.
It is literally the equivalent of buying a luxury smart home, but the previous owner kept the master password to the control panel.
Yep.
You can walk in the front door, you can use the internet, but you can't lock the digital deadbolts. And you can't stop the previous owner from walking in virtually whenever they want.
That's the reality of the situation Cowabunga computers walked into. They realized immediately they couldn't just swap the battery and leave.
They had to take action.
Yeah. To genuinely secure their client, they had to perform a hostile takeover of the client's own hardware to hand them back the keys.
This kicks off the rebuild phase of the morning. The clock is ticking, the client has no internet, and Cowabunga has to navigate this tricky logistical puzzle.
And living in Hawaii, island logistics play a huge role.
Yeah, you can't just expect next day shipping to save you on Oahu. You need parts that are physically on the island right now. And Best Buy didn't even open until 10 a.m.
This is where experienced IT professionals really differentiate themselves from amateurs. Amateurs might have just sat around waiting or driven to the store early just to sit in the parking lot.
Just wasting time.
Exactly. But the Cowabunga team used that waiting window to build a comprehensive strategy for the network takeover.
They mapped out a highly efficient supply run. They went to retail to pick up a new heavy UPS battery to handle the power, and then they swung by their own main office to grab a current generation Unify gateway to replace the locked one.
Making sure they only made one trip back to the penthouse with every single piece of the puzzle ready to go.
Efficiency is critical in a network down scenario. So once they were back on site, they had to confront the cryptographic reality of the Unify hardware.
Right, because enterprise systems don't just let you plug a new router into an old network and start giving orders.
I want to dig into that, actually. If the old equipment was completely locked by a previous owner and the gateway was outdated, why not just rip everything out?
Ah, the nuclear option.
Yeah. Why wouldn't Cowabunga just tell the client, hey, you need a brand new system from scratch, and sell them a new switch and 5 new access points? It seems like it would be vastly easier than trying to break into a locked system.
It would absolutely be easier, but it wouldn't serve the client's best interests. And this is a crucial point about professional IT services.
Right.
The 16-port switch and those 5 access points were still perfectly capable high-end pieces of hardware. Ripping them out would have cost the homeowner thousands of dollars in unnecessary equipment and labor.
Wow, so they were protecting the client's wallet, too.
Cowabunga recognized that the hardware itself wasn't the problem. The cryptographic keys managing them were the problem.
Okay, so how do you force old hardware to talk to a new router when you don't have the passwords?
You have to perform a hard physical factory reset.
Like pushing a button.
In the unified ecosystem, when an access point is adopted by a controller, they exchange secure shell or SSH keys. They encrypt their communication.
Okay.
If the access point hears a command from a new gateway that doesn't have the right cryptographic signature, it actively ignores it to prevent a hacker from hijacking the network.
That is a brilliant security feature, but an absolute nightmare for the IT guy trying to fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only way to bypass it is to physically access every single device. The Cowabunga team had to walk the entire penthouse, locate the switch and all 5 access points, find the tiny recessed reset button, and hold a paperclip in there until the device's internal memory wiped itself clean.
They are essentially inducing amnesia in the hardware to erase the phantom admin's control.
Yes, they clear the NVRAM. Once the devices reboot in a factory default state, they broadcast a signal looking for a new controller.
And that's when they introduce the new gateway.
Exactly. At that point, the Cowabunga team brought the new, upgraded Unify Gateway online. They initiated the adoption process, meaning the new gateway shook hands with the wiped access points, generated brand new SSH keys, and bound the network together securely under the new homeowner's control.
And because they stay within the same Unify brand ecosystem, the devices all recognized each other once they were wiped.
Precisely. Upgrading just the core gateway while retaining the peripheral hardware kept costs down and ensured seamless communication across the penthouse.
The technical execution here is just amazing. They reconfigure the Wi-Fi names, establish new highly secure administrative passwords, and then physically walk the unit with their diagnostic tools to verify all 5 access points were handing off signals smoothly.
They tested multiple devices for connectivity.
And the total time for all of this. From the initial panic call at 9 a.m., diagnosing the short circuit, navigating the retail supply chain, physically wiping a multi-point enterprise network, and rebuilding it from scratch.
Under 3 hours.
It's just wild. It is a remarkable timeline that really highlights the value of having a dedicated local team that understands both the physical electrical layer and the complex cryptographic layer of a network.
It really is the gold standard. But the source material from Cowabunga Computers goes a step further. They don't just publish this as a win for their team.
Right. They extract the lessons from this specific sprint to create a blueprint for everyone else. It's a guide for how you, the person listening right now, should be looking at your own home tech.
The takeaways are incredibly practical. The first one deals with the physical infrastructure, checking your batteries.
They point out that a UPS only has a reliable lifespan of 3 to 5 years. I honestly can't remember the last time I checked the date on my battery backup.
Oh, I'm sure most people don't.
You plug it in the bottom of a closet and just assume it's immortal.
It's a very common blind spot. We assume because a device provides power, it doesn't degrade. But as we discussed with the chemical degradation and the balloon capacitors, an aging UPS goes from being a protective shield to a ticking electrical liability.
Yeah.
If your battery backup has been sitting in your home office since before 2020, you really need to inspect it, run a self-test, or just replace it today.
That is super actionable. The second major lesson is about those digital keys, securing your credentials. You have to differentiate between your Wi-Fi password and your administrative login.
Right. I encourage everyone to ask themselves, do I know the admin password to my router right now? Not the password you give your guest to stream a movie, but the login required to update the hardware's firmware or change the DNS settings.
Because an IT company set up your network years ago, or if you inherited gear from a previous tenant, you might not have that information.
And if you don't have it, you are in the exact same vulnerable position as the penthouse owner. You need to track down those credentials, write them down, and store them securely in a password manager or a physical safe.
Essential advice. The final lesson Cowabunga emphasizes is the strategic value of sticking with a single ecosystem.
Yeah, they highlight how upgrading within the Unify brand made this recovery possible so quickly.
Right. If the Penthouse had a mix of 5 different brands of access points and switches, trying to get them all to communicate under a single controller would have taken days, not hours.
It would have been a nightmare. Sticking to one unified language for your network makes troubleshooting exponentially faster.
It also future-proofs the investment. When the time comes to upgrade one piece of the puzzle, you don't have to rebuild the entire framework.
Exactly.
Now, if you're listening to this and realizing your own home network is essentially a black box that you don't fully control and you happen to live in Hawaii, this is where Cowabunga Computers really comes in.
They are such a great resource.
They're based locally on Oahu, and their entire operational philosophy is built around rapid, expert response. Because network emergencies don't wait for a convenient time on a Tuesday afternoon.
No, they always happen at the worst possible moment. Their ability to show up on site, quickly diagnose a physical hardware fault like a shorting UPS, and immediately pivot to solving a complex software security issue like the Phantom Admin is a massive asset for homeowners and small businesses.
Definitely. If you are on Oahu and you need a professional IT team to audit your network, upgrade your aging hardware, or just figure out why your Wi-Fi keeps dropping, Cowabunga is the team to call.
Highly recommend them.
You can reach them directly at 808-468-4468 or visit their website at smartcows.com/contact. They solve the problems that standard troubleshooting guides simply can't address.
They do the hard work.
But looking at this whole scenario, it really underscores how deeply we fall into a set-it-and-forget-it mindset with our home technology.
Oh, totally. The technology is designed to be invisible. We only notice the Wi-Fi when a video buffers or a work call drops.
But the reality of this case study is that a 5-minute proactive audit today, checking the sticker on your UPS battery or verifying your admin login, could save you hours of downtime and absolute panic tomorrow.
It points to a profound shift in how we live, I think. Our homes are heavily dependent on enterprise-grade infrastructure now.
Yeah, they really are.
From the security cameras and smart locks to the network switches keeping our remote offices online, we are effectively living inside complex data centers.
We can't just limit home maintenance to cleaning the gutters and checking the smoke alarms anymore. We have to maintain our digital infrastructure with the same level of care.
Network maintenance is now fundamentally home maintenance. You need to approach it with an IT professional's mindset.
Which brings us back to the sheer scale of the Cowabunga team's accomplishment here. They walked into a dark penthouse, paralyzed by a physical electrical short.
Right.
They isolated the danger, discovered a massive security vulnerability left by a previous owner, mapped out a logistical supply run across Honolulu, physically wiped a multi-point enterprise network, and securely rebuilt the entire digital infrastructure in less than 3 hours.
They neutralized the immediate threat while preserving the client's existing investment. It's the gold standard for how emergency IT support should function.
It is an incredible masterclass in problem solving, and it leaves us with something pretty deep to think about. We all understand physical ownership. When you buy a house or sign a lease, you get the physical brass keys.
Right, the traditional handover.
But as our homes become giant interconnected computers that we actually live inside, the concept of property is evolving.
It absolutely is. The physical keys only grant you access to the physical space. The network credentials grant you control over the environment.
Exactly. So ask yourself, if you were to sell your house or even just move out of an apartment tomorrow, would you remember to formally hand over the digital keys alongside the physical ones?
Most people wouldn't even think of it.
Right, because without the admin credentials, the network passwords, and the device ownership transfers, you aren't really handing over the whole house.
Yeah.
We've entered an era where the digital deed to your home is becoming just as critical as the paper one. Make sure you know exactly who holds yours.